Me. So there's three things I'm going to do with you guys here, besides handouts.
You have extras, actually.
I have extras? Oh, excellent.
A few.
Good. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you 8 faulty thinkings that people have and some challenges to the brain that people have that get in the way of being able to influence them. So that's one. Second thing is I'm going to share with you 4 ways of influencing that you don't want to do. Then there's more than one way to influence someone. You guys agree with that? Yes. I have 27 that I've found, and I'm sharing with you 8, but in your handout I actually added 4 more. So you got a few to look at with the handout. So that's that. What I really want you to do, big picture, is when it comes to influencing, it's not thinking about influencing a particular person, but influencing the whole system in which that person is in. So it's influencing what Simon Sinek says is the environment. And according to Simon, it says, hey, look, people aren't the problem. It's the environment. Fix the environment, and then you fix the people. So you make it easier. There's a guy of the name Ben Dominitz who is a consultant down in South Carolina, and he works with teams and improving teams, and he gets paid a lot of money to take teams that are having trouble functioning, getting them functioning better and improving productivity. And one of the things he does this reset at the beginning of each team meeting, in which the members read something and they commit to it. So what I'd like to have, to give you an idea what that's like, you want to see what that's like? Yeah? You're excited about seeing what it's like? It's really cool. It works. It unites teams together. Okay, I need 8 volunteers to come up here and line up and read something. So come on, just stand up. We got to get 8 all lined up. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Go ahead and jump on in there. Don't let me get in the way. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8. I'm going to each hand you a sheet of paper. Don't do anything with it other than read it to yourself. I'm going to ask you, starting at this end, to read what's on the paper, and then we'll take it from there. So this is, welcome your project team. So over here, they're going to describe about their project team and what they're committed to doing. So starting right here.
Our company is tough. People, even executives, sometimes put themselves first at the expense of others. We work in an ultra-competitive workplace that can bring the best of us down. But we're different. On our team, we look out for each other. None are alone, and we are safe to ask teammates for help.
You are awesome. I'm going to get behind you so the mic will pick up.
We fight every day for our customers, for our stakeholders, and for our company. Regardless of project disappointments or supposed tribulations, we don't whine or complain. We don't act angry or lash out at others. Instead, we work together to learn from our setbacks and mistakes. We welcome this opportunity to grow and overcome adversity.
When we speak the unvarnished truth. We say what we mean, and we mean what we say. We do this while showing great compassion and respect towards those who hear our words.
We value our teammates' time. When we meet, we show up early and always prepared. We never make excuses. Excuses are unacceptable and insult our team.
On our team, we accept our own accountability, but that's not enough. We hold each other accountable for our words, commitments, and contributions.
If the project ever begins to fail, we never remain silent. Instead of saying, this project isn't working, we describe what isn't working in behavioral terms. As a team, we then discuss the issue and address the challenge.
When we meet as a team, we serve the team. We listen first to what others say and then inquire to assure our understanding. This is because our purpose is to make a positive difference and not to prove how smart we are.
These beliefs are what make our team strong and resilient. We act upon them to better ourselves, our team, and our company. I commit to cherish and champion our team's beliefs and to support others in doing the same.
Give them a hand. Thank you very much.
We want to be on this team.
Now, well, I mean, isn't it like all the teams that you guys work with? I mean, aren't they like that? Well, what Ben does is he has, once they get to the end, everyone, he says, do you commit to our beliefs again? And it's not yes, it's yes, I commit to doing all those things. And it's a way of uniting people to having some shared values so that they can work together and they have a common purpose. When you're in the environment or in the system and you step into this room and you're having this team meeting, you're stepping away from all those distractors that are out there, and you recommit to saying, no matter what happens, when we walk out that door, we're still going to commit to doing these things. And when you verbalize it and you have people commit to it, they tend to say, okay, I'll explain this in when I get to the faulty thinking of why people feel pressure to do that and why it's a good thing to do. Okay. So this is I'm going to reference, John, your talk earlier that you did, talking about how important it is to do leadership and that thing called soft skills, something like that. When you're down here, not meaning it's necessarily vertical, but career-wise, most of what you do is technical functional. As you move up in the organization, you're having to rely more on being able to manage your relationships, working with different people, and influencing. When you get up at the executive level, you're not doing a bunch of this. But this is where people are comfortable. They're comfortable doing technical functional. And when managers are really comfortable with this and uncomfortable with this, they do micromanage. This is what they're familiar with. But what's ironic is as you go up, how many of you, is this your first session ever on influencing? How many of you have done influencing? Sort of, one, two, a few? Oh, wow, more. I guarantee executives aren't doing it. Well, not all executives, I'm sure there's some. But as you go up, the thing that we do most influencing with people, you think you would try to develop those skills. That was really Southern, skills. And so the point of this is as you go up, you really need to focus on this side to be able to do the things like Ben coming up with the idea of getting people to commit and using that particular technique. That's not one of the 12 techniques. That's sort of like a bonus. So I'm going to talk about 8 faulty thinking and brain challenges that you can run across. And here's the first one, fundamental attribution error. I'm sure many of you might recognize those words, and I'll describe it for you, and maybe I'll trigger some more memories about this. You're driving down the road, and then some guy in a sports car cuts you off. And you think, that guy cut me off and was inconsiderate and was just being a jerk. And then you get angry. Is that what happened? You had behavior, someone cut you off, then something different happened. You had story. That person deliberately cut me off and is a jerk. And then you had emotion. Are you getting mad because of the behavior? No, you're getting mad because you came up with a story that got you upset. And that is the beginning of fundamental attribution error. When we see something, we like to make up stories. And those stories tend to be something about that person is wrong. That person is doing something. It's internal. That's forcing them to do this. There's something wrong with that person. That person's a jerk. When you think about yourself, it's like, well, yeah, there's all these reasons that happen. If you were the one being the cutting off, I was late. I didn't see the car. I had no idea. I was going to the hospital. When I waved my fist out the window, it had nothing to do with the person behind me. I was mad at the phone because it wasn't working. I was expressing my anger. So when we think about ourselves, our internal, we think about, okay, there's all these external things that are really affecting what we're doing. But when we think of other people, they're doing something wrong. But we choose a story, and we choose a story to react to, and it gets us upset. What happens if you change the story? Try this the next time someone cuts you off or does something you don't like while you're driving, or whatever it is. Make up a story like you always do, or stop yourself from making up a bad one. And come up with some reason. Say, well, maybe the person's just tired, or is having a bad day, or had a lost loved one, and isn't really, just any story that would bring out more compassion than anger. So that our brain loves to make up stories and then reacts to those stories. So that's the first one. Others are morally deficient. There's something wrong with those people. True story. I was hired at a large organization because I had fired someone in my previous organization. The VP interviewed me and then asked me, have you ever fired someone? I said, yeah, man, it was really tough. Oh, wait, I know, it's always tough. Okay, I'm done. I have heard all I need to hear. Hired me. He assigned me 2 people to report to him and said, Gary, this guy, when you walk by his desk, he's balancing his checkbook. This guy's bothering all the other people in the department. These are lazy folks. They don't work hard. They don't do their job, and you need to fire them or fix them. Okay, that was a first. So did I fire them? No. Found out that working with them, they didn't have enough work to do. They would build something, they would build a deliverable, and the previous manager never implemented it. Well, we need to review it, we need to do all this other stuff, and then they had nothing to do. Both of those people are still at the same company. One moved from an individual contributor and is now a manager of a very large team, and they're doing great. But fundamental attribution error, you're sitting there looking at your phone, you're looking at LinkedIn, maybe you're job searching, but you don't know what's going on. Why are these people doing that? There's nothing really morally deficient about them. It's just the environment they're in. They don't have enough work to do, and they want to do good work and make reasonable contributions to the organization. And bored, absolutely. Confirmation bias and representative heuristics. So let me ask you something. Your opinion, just out of curiosity, I'm going to ask you which one you think happens more frequently, drownings or suicide? How many think suicide? How many think drowning? It's kind of mixed. If you said drowning, you're wrong. Suicide is significantly higher. If I asked you how many major conflicts are going on right now in the world, you could probably come up with a few. but it probably is only a fraction of how many that are actually going on. Why? We learn those things about suicides and drownings and even fires from watching the media. Suicide's not really talked about very often, but these other things are. So we get this idea that, there's a lot of drownings going on, or a lot of fires going on, or other things. And that's called representative heuristics. You have a fraction of the whole, and you believe that that is representing the whole. Confirmation bias, I guess you guys might know, I'm sure you've witnessed this. You're working on a project that you're passionate about, or someone is, we'll say someone else because it's always the other people doing confirmation bias. And they look for data that supports their beliefs. But they ignore the stuff that doesn't support their beliefs because our brain likes to be right. That's what confirmation bias is. Politics, confirmation bias. We look for the things we like. If you are conservative, you might watch Fox News. If you're more liberal, you might watch MSNBC. Try watching them both. It might hurt. Certainty is rewarding for the brain. It activates in our brains the neurotransmitter dopamine. Dopamine, good stuff. Uncertainty, not good, bad. It actually activates parts of the brains, including that fight, flight, and it makes people really uncomfortable when they don't know what's going on. Think about a major project change. People are really having a hard time trying to deal with this stuff, and they're uncertain. But when you have certainty, it's very rewarding. I'll give you an example of how this works. Think of a slide that you saw up here and it didn't make sense until I explained it to you. As soon as I explained it to you, it made sense and you felt good. So when someone is presenting you a problem, it's like, what the heck is this? I don't understand it, but then someone else explains it. Oh, I get it now. I feel good. This is good. I understand it now. So that's why it's certainty. When you understand stuff, when you get stuff, it's very rewarding. Times of change, when there's a lot of uncertainty, it triggers that fear factor. Do you flee? Do you run? What do you do? Well, you have a fixed mindset. Who knows what a fixed mindset is? Yeah, just go ahead and just.
You close your mind to anything that anybody suggests, probably.
Yeah, that.
Only go with the way you think it has to be done.
That has a lot to do with it. Your mindset. If you have a fixed mindset, there are certain things that you don't believe. You don't believe that the abilities you have are the abilities you have. Your intelligent level is not going to get greater. It's a trait. It's what you have, and you have fixed beliefs about a lot of things. And one of the things is, by the way, if I have a fixed mindset and I make a mistake, that mistake is my being a failure. And it shows that I'm not as intelligent as you might have thought. So I'm going to do everything in my power to not make mistakes, to sound as important as I can, and to show you how smart I am. And the type of tasks I want to do are the ones that I'm comfortable doing. But if you give me something that's really uncomfortable, it's a major threat to me. So it triggers that threat in the brain, and it becomes very challenging. You become more closed-minded. Someone who is the opposite of this, open mindset, I make a mistake. This is a great opportunity to learn. I want to develop. I know I can get better. I know with practice I can do certain things. If you don't think you might have, this doesn't affect you, have you ever heard anyone say, I can't skate, can't do art, there's no way, I'm not artistic at all. I can't do whatever, play the guitar. There's a lot of things that I can't do. Just can't do it. Never going to happen. It won't make me. That's a fixed mindset. But saying, you know what? I may never become Rembrandt, but I think I could get better with some practice, take some classes, and, you know. So that's a fixed mindset. Number 6, tend to pay less attention to relationships. Now, it depends. If you're in a time of major change and it's very upsetting, employees get together and they actually crave that relationship. What is going on? What's going on? What have you heard? What have you heard? They need that. But when you get to the executive level, it's the opposite. They tend to pay less attention to relationships. And by the way, communication and training, it's an afterthought. You know, something that, okay, we have to do it. But they, because of their position of power, they tend to think more in numbers, and they think more in terms of stereotypes, because what we found in psychology is that as you gain power, it changes your mindset and how you view things. And if you're at the top, you're having a lot of pressure put on you by a lot of different people, and you have to step back and say, how am I going to deal with this? So they end up tending to have the focus less on relationships, especially in times of change. Out-group, in-group bias. So out-group, in-group bias, this is...
Excuse me, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
On the previous one,
Yep.
number 6, the more power, the less tendency to yield to relationships. Is that because they automatically assume everybody's going to be trying to influence me and I still have to do the right thing for the right reason in the right way?
Well, part of it is that when you're at that level, you know what's going on about the change. You've been involved in the process, and so there's a lot more certainty in what you're doing. But at that level, you tend not to have strong relationships where you're focusing on helping all the people that are underneath you, and you tend to stereotype. It's another brain mechanism for a heuristic. How do I handle all these people? I got to step back. I got to distance myself. I got to do layoffs. I'm going to really distance myself, but cut 10% of the workforce. I'm not going to be the one actually going out there and doing it. They don't see what's going on because they're so far removed. And real quick medical example. There's a professor, I can't remember his name because it's spontaneously thinking of it. He teaches a class on how problems in the medical field dealing with mistakes, major mistakes that cause tragic problems with the patient and the patient's family. And they all get together, nice environment, they learn all this stuff, they feel good, and they go back into their old environment and then revert back to what they were doing before. Nothing's changed. What this professor did is he said, I want you, executive, before you come here to find one case, one tragedy that happened and research it, not someone else, and come back and report on it. What happened was every executive that had the report about it, they were in tears. They were touched by what had happened to these patients. And suddenly this became real, concrete. They actually experienced it. So it was because the professor forced them or persuaded them to really get into a case that they never would have done before. They got to experience that. It's probably more than what you're looking.
That helps me, thank you.
Okay. Out-group, in-group. In a matter of seconds, we decide if that person that we see over here is in or out. It happens. That's what we do. And if you're out, you tend to stereotype and have a simple view of how that person is. If you're in, you tend to think about the thought process is the same as you would think about yourself, more of a complex nuance. So Does that really happen? Well, have you been on conference calls where you had 20 people in the room and 6 on the phone? Who's in, who's out? People on the phone are forgotten. Yeah. And this was interesting is that one executive that went through a course on this kind of stuff, he said, well, I don't know about this, and I'm going to check on some stuff. And he found out that the people that were farther away from him physically tended to feel like they're more outside of what's going on versus those that were closer in proximity where the executive interacted with them. So there's this real sense of in and out. And by the way, when you're out and you're looked down upon or treated differently, it can hurt. And it causes some social pain. And social pain is very similar to physical pain. It triggers activates the same parts of the brain, and it's something that is real, that affects a person deeply. So think about this. If you think about a physical ailment you had, being sick, breaking an arm, yeah, but what if you're thinking about that big fight you had with a friend of yours that just really escalated and you lost that friend? All those emotions that you went through come back to life. You know, if you ever got mad at someone at IT and you think about that, oh, that guy gets me so mad when he doesn't do what I need him to do, you relive it. Emotionally, social pain is stronger than physical pain. So think about in and out groups. Cognitive dissonance. Oh, that's my favorite. I'm going to write a book on this one day. You have 2 ideas and they conflict. And the brain doesn't like that. The brain can't handle conflicting ideas. So it has to do something about it. So let me give you an example. You have a person who you respect, you care a lot about. You tell people this person is a great person. And then you end up, someone comes up and says, you know what that jerk did? Said something really bad, like morally wrong. How do you handle your beliefs about that person? 1, you can disbelieve, one of the 2, resolved. 2, you can give more weight to one or the other. That kind of resolves it. Or you come up with another idea that resolves it. So, oh yeah, that event happened years ago. The person's not like that anymore, completely different in how they act. So it's this struggle thing. So have you ever, I'm bringing up politics again, talk to someone who is brilliant, articulate, a genius, but a nincompoop when it comes to talking about their views on politics? Anyone come to mind? Any people that, I have colleagues that are just adamant on one side of the fence. And I was doing a project in Huntsville, and the guy cornered me after work. We did a full day's work and spent 30 minutes talking about his man. And I was like, it was killing me, but I have a lot of respect for him. So you have cognitive dissonance. It's something that you have to be aware of and you have to try to resolve. But I'll tell you 2 ways in which this can work to your advantage. There's a famous Prime Minister, Sadat, who would go to his opponents and say, I'm looking forward to working with you on this problem, trying to resolve it, because I know you're fair and you're compassionate. And I really appreciate that about you. Person's like, how can I be mean to this person? How can I argue? Because the way people are seen by others, they want to appear that way. So you can't have dissonance and behave differently when something like that happens. Benjamin Franklin had a person who despised him, was a pain in the thorn in everything he did in politics. And Franklin went up to him and said, hey, I know that you have this incredible library, and I have been looking for this book for years, and by any chance, do you have it? I heard you might have it. And the guy lends him the book. And then afterwards, he was like, well, can't be mad at him because I just did him a favor. That dissonance. How do you resolve that kind of stuff? So that's number 8. Now let me tell you about influence. You came here for influence. Those things make influence difficult. I'm going to show you 4 ways that you really shouldn't do this. I don't want you to adapt them. Persuade with speeches and email. Someone who is a terrible listener, you need to listen, and the person doesn't change. Why? There's people that when corporations, when executives see that there's a safety problem, pounds out the email, says, we need to be more safe. There, I did my job, got my $150,000 for the week, month, or whatever. I'm done. It don't work. Ever hear of nagging, guilting, threaten? People from VitalSmarts says when that happens, when you're pushing someone, they start to push back. And this is probably some people's favorite way of influencing. And sometimes it works on me. You know, to keep you from nagging me about this, I'm just going to do it. But it harms the relationship. So yeah, you can use power, authority, and you can nag, guilt, threaten, and it may work, but it harms the relationship. And do you want a boss who's doing this kind of stuff? Train everyone. Real story. Project management story even. Department VP said, you know what, I'm really fed up with all the projects. I can't get a handle around them. I'm going to send everyone the project management training. So does that mean the PMPs have to go to project management training? Well, not them, but everyone else. What about the 4 people that built that training that you want to, do they have to do their own training? Well, maybe not that, but everyone else has to go. You know, there's an executive favor. It's like, send them the training, email them. It's like one thing they do, and they feel like they're successful at it, and they keep doing it. Use reward as your first motivational strategy. Rewarding people, it's good. But if you reward the results, that could be bad. So if you're in a factory and you have assembly lines and you're saying, okay, we need to increase production, and if you do, we'll do pizza, whatever, we'll get all bonuses and all this kind of stuff. So they rush through and they make their numbers. Defects go up, deaths happen, people get dismembered, awful things. You're rewarding the wrong thing. So starting off, rewards can be good, but that's not necessarily the best place to start. I'm just saying. So I want to talk about this motivation thing. And actually what I want to do is I want someone else to, because I need to drink some water, and I'm just going to let this person do it if the audio will work.
I have 4 kids. I have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old. I'm from Utah. And my 6-year-old son Drew, a couple months ago, I'm sitting at my kitchen counter. If you were sitting there with me, I'm in my kitchen. I'm looking at my phone. I'm responding to an email or text. I'm not paying attention. The refrigerator's kind of back over here behind me, to my right. All of a sudden, I hear Drew. He's 6. He goes, Dad, can you open the fridge? No, he's
Duh.
6. He can open the fridge. So I didn't look up. I just said, Drew, you can open the fridge. And then I hear Drew behind me go, Dad,
Sorry,
open the
guys.
fridge. And I'm like, what is going on? So I turn around, I look, and Drew is standing there holding 6 Matchbox cars in his hands. Now, as his leader, I have 2 options.
Sorry, guys. Oh, no.
I have 4 kids.
I know you really want to see this again.
A 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old. I'm from Utah. And
Is it sliding this way?
my 6-year-old son, Drew, a couple months ago, I'm sitting at my kitchen counter. If you were sitting there with me, I'm in my kitchen. I'm looking at my phone. I'm responding to an email or text. I'm not paying attention. The refrigerator's kind of back over here behind me, to my right. All of a sudden, I hear Drew. He's 6. He goes, "Dad, can you open the fridge?" No, he's 6. He can open the fridge. So I didn't look up. I just said, "Drew, you can open the fridge." And then I hear Drew behind me go, "Dad, open the fridge." And I'm like, what is going on? So I turn around, I look, and Drew is standing there holding 6 Matchbox cars in his hands. Now, as his leader, I have 2 options. I can motivate him. "Drew, you can do it, buddy. Try harder. Try harder." Or I can remove the obstacles and help him do his job. I said, "Drew, put the Matchbox cars down." He put them down. I said, "Now open the fridge." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, I did it." Like he's never done this before, right? That may be the simplest example I could give you, but I think it makes the point. Here's the truth. As leaders, we spend most of our time focused on motivation. And I think the reason we do is because it's easier. It doesn't require that much of you. It's pretty simple. If you think of leadership as just motivational cheerleading, you just cheer people on, right? Go get them, guys, run. Go do it, go do it. Here's the problem. If there's a wall in the way, they don't need your cheerleading. They need you to move the wall, right? You can't just go, "No, run into the wall," and boom, they hit the wall. Okay, well, get back up. Run faster this time. Like, put your shoulder into it. Maybe that wall will move. No, we have to actually move the wall, right? We have to figure out what's stopping our people. And here's the thing, there's times that it's systemic, right? Through the organization, you might go, what are the sticking points? And you might figure out some of those things that we need to clear the runway a little bit. But more often than not, leadership is individual. And so the way you figure that out with your people is you actually have to lock arms with your people. You have to get in the trenches with your people. You have to actually partner with your people and figure out what's stopping them. And it's about locking arms with them. Motivation is important, but it's overrated. How do you remove those obstacles? How do you remove those inhibitors? How do you make those people better so that they can show up and do the job well every single day? When you partner with your people, what you ultimately create is more leadership.
Multiple monitors. So the whole thing is, let's go against that wall. Let's push it harder. There's got to be better ways to influence people, to get them to do what's best for them, and maybe best for you. So
move.
talk about real quickly a way of framing all this stuff. Well, it's not going to be real quick, sorry. It's going to be like forever. When it comes time to influencing a team, influencing change, you really want to identify what are the key behaviors that you want to influence. And you've heard this 80-20 thing or 20-80 thing where if you do 20%, it covers the 80%, something like that. Yeah, so so what VitalSmarts says is if you find the 2 key behaviors and you could actually change those, it acts like a cascading effect. Duhigg calls it a chain reaction, to where if you get the 2 main ones, 1 or 2 main ones, it will trigger other behaviors that will align with it. And there's like tons of examples where CEOs have focused on safety instead of the traditional goals for the company, and that actually caused a cascading effect to all sorts of other behaviors leading to record profits. So there's a lot of things. Finding these key behaviors is key. So look for the obvious. That's one way of doing it. And find the crucial moment. So here's an example of a crucial moment. There's a restaurant. Rush hour lunch is over. Staff is going like, oh man, wow, good job. Then the tourists show up in their bus. They're not prepared for this. That is a crucial moment. How do they respond? How do they react? Do they run around? Do they freak out? How do they do it? That's a crucial moment. A hospital where they're trying to get people to wash their hands. Huge thing. Millions of people, thousands of people die from hospital diseases, and washing hands is a way of doing it. Doctor walks into a patient's room, starts to talk with the patient. The janitor says, "Hey doc, forgot to wash your hands." Crucial moment. Does the doctor say, "You know what, get the hell out of here," or whatever? Or does the doctor say, "Thank you"? It's a crucial moment. And that's where the key behavior comes in, finding those. Learn from exemplar performance. This is looking at people who do something really well and people who aren't doing stuff real well. And then talking with them and finding out what is it that the ones that are doing it well are doing differently from the people that aren't doing it as well. And finding out that difference can help identify some of those key behaviors. And lastly, find the behaviors that reinforce the code of silence. Anyone know what the code of silence is? These are the unspoken rules of the organization. I went to work at a company. I was consulting with them, and true story, I found out that one of the individual contributors was punished because at an all-hands meeting, when the executive said, "I'll take any questions," he asked a question. Went down the chain, director, manager, punished this person for speaking. You don't speak, you don't raise your hands. Open door policy, you accept, you say, "Yeah, that's a good idea." Don't walk through that door, and don't shut the door for whatever reason. There's unspoken things, the code of silence. What is it in a group that you're not speaking of? In project management, going back to VitalSmarts, they did a study of failed projects from all around the world. And one of the common things that came out of this was the code of silence. This project isn't working. It's a failure. It's not going to work. There's no way it will work. But no one's allowed to say that, including the project manager. Code of silence. So those are the things you look for. This is a way of finding the stuff that you're looking for it, and it's in your handout. This is called the 6 boxes. Carl put this together based on some guy named Gilbert. And basically, it's a way of organizing influential areas. So looking at what are the expectations, what's the information that employees are getting? Are they getting the right information? Are they getting the wrong information? Are they not getting enough information? What tools and resources do they have? Is there knowledge management? Is there things that enable them to be successful? And what are the things that they're being rewarded with and incentivized to do the work? And are they incentivizing the right thing or the wrong thing? Are you making a lot of widgets that have a lot of defects? Or are you incentivizing the process? These are all external. These are all internal to the person. Do they have the skill set? Do they have the training that they need to do their job? Are they capable of doing it? Do they need equipment to enable them to be able to function in their role easier? And what about this motivation? What are their preferences? So those are a way of categorizing the things to look at. And we've worked, and I've done this, I got documents at home where there's a whole bunch of questions underlying each one of these that you could be asking to get at this structure. So it's a way of categorizing what is it that's going on, what's going on with the behaviors, what are the needs. I've mentioned the VitalSmarts. They have their own structure, and it's in some ways it's similar. It's based on personal, social, and structural. So get them to help them love what they hate, get them to be able to do what they need to do but can't. And social is give them the right encouragement and so forth. And structural is, I'm going to talk about some of this in upcoming. But wanted to give you the big picture and tell you that what they found is if you take one influential technique from 4 of these, you're 10 times more likely to be able to get the results that you want. Now, I'm going to try to play a video. Lord help me. I'm going to click over here instead. Oh, great.
What you're about to see is real. Real kids doing real things. Just thought you should know. My name's Hiram Gray, and I was there for the whole thing. So here's a question. What does it take to get people to change? And I'm not talking about their socks and underwear, but change behavior, especially when it's hard. For example, every year close to 100,000 people die from hospital-acquired infections. That means people got sick at the hospital. And it turns out one of the main culprits is hand hygiene. That means just getting people to wash their hands could save lives. So my crack research team decided to conduct an experiment to see if we could change something as difficult as hand washing habits, only with the toughest subjects of all, kids. So here's what we did. We took 80 munchkins and put them into groups. First, we gave them a challenging puzzle to put together. You know, kind of like the projects you adults are always busy with. Then, we gave the kids a tempting distraction.
Hey guys, I got the cupcakes for you right here. They're delicious. I'm sitting right over here.
Once I see that you guys have put the whole puzzle together correctly, I'll raise my flag, just like this, and then I'll blow my whistle. Okay, and when I do that, you guys can all go and get your cupcake. So what would it take to get these kids to wash their hands? How about a good reason? So one thing you guys should know, there was a sick kid in here playing with the puzzle pieces. He had a runny nose and coughed a lot, so there's probably a lot of germs on everything. But there's hand sanitizer over there on the table that you can use to wash up. Okay, which will win out? Delicious frosted cupcakes or the fear of the typhoid toddler? Let's watch. They finished their task, and look, if the threat of one sick kid wasn't enough, just look at all the new germs popping up. What do you think they'll do? Now what? Well, at this point, most adults would quit. That's why you just keep changing the year on those New Year's resolutions. With the next group of kids, I changed the environment by moving the hand sanitizer closer, and then put up a visual cue. This ought to make hand washing easier and more obvious, right? And in the end, the motivation to not get sick plus changing the environment didn't influence a single kid. Yikes! Next, I increased their ability, which is another source of influence. I had them all complete what is known as deliberate practice, or training, to increase their familiarity with good hand hygiene. Will adding another source of influence get these hand washing offenders to wash up? Done. And well, now we're seeing some better results. We're combining 3 different sources of influence, and some of the kids are actually washing their hands. It looks like we're on the right track. So next, I added another source of influence, social influence. What if somebody spoke up and said something? What would happen if their bosses were in the room with them? Here come the cupcakes. And there goes the flag. Will they wash? No! Look at them pouncing on those cupcakes like a pack of ravenous hyenas. But it's not too late, because something important happens. At just the critical moment, a peer, not even one of the bosses, speaks up. Wash your hands. Watch the effect. Success at last. So social motivation obviously made a difference. But was it the only thing that mattered? What about our other sources of influence? Here's what my kids had to say. This time, I was walking over to get my cupcake, but then someone said, wash your hands, because this boy had his nipples in here. So what's the point? We often underwhelm overwhelming problems. We try a couple of things, and when they don't work, we give up. But my dad and his colleagues discovered the secret to overcoming tough problems. You need to combine at least 4, preferably more, sources of influence. And it doesn't matter if you try it with kids or hospitals, at the office, or even at home. If you use 4 or more sources of influence, your chances for success go up 10 times. 10 times! So there it is. The key to changing almost anything is to marshal the power of at least 4 or more sources of influence, but preferably all 6. And heaven knows, we need it.
That was awesome.
All right. Cool? But the thing is that when we have executives, they tend to go, I have my one way of doing it, I'll send the email out. But I'm going to show you 8 in 4 minutes or less. Allow authentic choice. So this one is, I put it number 1 for a particular reason. It's because if you don't have authentic choice in whether doing something or not doing something, then you have threat. You know, it's not a real choice. People want, their brains want to be able to make decisions. And they don't want you to come to the conclusion and tell them this is what's going on. Lead them to the conclusion. If you have sponsors and you want them to arrive at something, give them the information they need to come to their own conclusion about what needs to happen. Make it a game. Hey, watch an NBA game, but no scoreboard. You don't actually see it. Only the judge knows who's boring. Watching them going back and forth, it would be boring. If you make it into a game, if you have some type of a scoring or something like that, it's a way of influencing. The Carter Center worked at eradicating guinea worm in Africa, and they met with all the leaders in the countries, and they would present these charts and say what all is going on. This one guy focused on one chart. It was sort of like a horse racing thing where you see the horses going like this. Well, here's your country. You're here. This country's here. This one's at the starting. Oh, no, we need to be over here. We can't let that country beat us. It became a game, and it was enough to influence them to act. Engage in the chain of command and opinion leaders. Guy Wallace, a consultant colleague of mine, went to one place and he said, I'm going to implement this project. I need to find the most ornery, gruffiest, resistant person that you have. And I want to work with that person. And he did. Meeting came up where they're talking about it. And then over here, John at the meeting decides, this is a complete waste of time. Old Gruffy stands up and says, John, sit down, shut up, listen to him. He's got something important to say. Finding opinion leaders is not necessarily going to the people at the top, but engage the chain in command and get them involved and have them help you. It's another way of influencing, and if they're on your side, it makes your job much easier. Make the undiscussable discussable. We talked about the code of silence. So it's really how can you make that into a safe environment where you can say, okay, we got to get this out. The elephant in the room reminds you of a presentation but you need to make it discussable. 200% accountability, that's not possible. How do you have 200% accountability? Well, if you remember the people all lined up here, you're 100% accountable for yourself, but you're 100% accountable for the people to the left and right of you. Unless you're at the very end, but the whole group. You get it. And remember the video, the social motivation, don't forget to wash your hands. If you get people on the team to be able to say that, it makes a world of difference. And leverage peer support. Someone is struggling with tasks, pair that person up with someone who's really good at it. And instead of you helping that person be successful at achieving their tasks on time, have someone on the team help. 7, reward key behaviors. You guys remember this triangle thing? You know, if you say your sponsor says, well, the time, we can either cut it in half. Well, you got to raise the cost or decrease the quality or narrow the scope. You know, you go to each one of these. Went and did this thing with a sponsor who wanted to make some changes to time. And then afterwards, when the project was over, I said to him, you know, when I explained this to you and you got it, it made all the difference in the world for our project success. And the people on the team realized that you were the true champion to make this happen because you recognized this. You think that, would you want to work with someone who you just told that to? You think that person will use this again for other projects? It's a way of rewarding just at that level. But reward, you also want to reward people doing the process and not just the end results. Otherwise, you have the factory example. And one of my favorite, make the invisible visible. This was in Florida. They had a water sprinkler with this thing right there with a line through it. People apparently have been hanging their coats and jackets on there, and it causes a damage and water goes everywhere. So what do hotels do? Well, they have to train all the guests that come in every day about not hanging this. They give them a memo that says, don't hang your stuff here or else we're not liable. You have to sign this saying that you're not going to hang this stuff up here. No, you make it easy. Change the environment so that people know not to do it. There was a problem at a shipping where they wouldn't fill up the boxes all the way to the same level. Sometimes they're low, sometimes they're high. They just drew a line on the inside, fill to here. 90% of the time they fill to there. So there is 2 minutes over. A little bit more about influencing, I hope, than when you walked in the door. Thank you very much. And if you bring